And that's Bagel, the doggy. So let's get started. If we can, everyone, if you can introduce yourself. Alessio, please start. Do you not have a mic? Here you go. Here.
Hi everyone, my name is Alessio Schiazza, and I'm the editor of Punk Rock Video Movie.
I'm Bobby Sud. I shot most of the animal footage in the movie.
I'm Lindsay. I produced the film with Moby, and I also play a weird news lady. And this is Bagel, and she plays Moby's confidant throughout the film.
My name's Moby, and I guess I'm the writer and director, and this is going to sound narcissistic, but it's just necessity being the mother of invention. I'm also the musician, animator, cinematographer, because in keeping with the sort of DIY spirit of punk rock, we just did everything ourselves, which, am I allowed to start talking? Okay. Because the goal of the movie, first and foremost, the goal is, to use the limited resources that we have, the cultural resources, the platforms we have, to try and create a vegan world. Like that's the goal. That's what I don't know about you guys, but that's what I wake up every morning asking myself, like, what can I do to end the horrifying, irrational, cruel use of animals by and for humans. And this movie in particular was largely based on the fact that so many people, I was surprised to find out, were unaware of the fact that a huge part of animal rights activism started with the punk rock community. And so I wanted to sort of look at that very interesting history, but also the reason why. Because as to state the obvious, when activists choose to be activists, it's not arbitrary. It's not like one day you wake up and decide to cut your hair. Well, I can't do that because I don't have hair. But, there's nothing arbitrary about committing yourself to animal rights activism, and especially for the early punk rock activists in the 70s and the 80s, even into the 90s, it wasn't just not arbitrary, it was incredibly challenging, as you'll see. Hopefully with some comedic effect. We talk about what it was like to tour as a vegan in the early days. And for example, Ray from Youth of Today talks about how in the 80s he would bring a tub of miso with him and go into the bathroom at McDonald's and use hot water from the bathroom at McDonald's to make miso soup. And that was their meal for 2 days. So, okay, I'm rambling on because I'm an old person and probably a little bit solipsistic. What else should we talk about? Well, the project came about because I guess it was I've been a vegan now for 35 years, but thank you. But I guess it was around 10 or 12 years ago I realized that hedonism and selfishness and self-serving action and behavior was not just counterproductive, but almost paradoxically, when I was, a globe-trotting rock star, I was miserable. And I was like, well, why do I keep doing this and burning through resources and burning through brain cells if the end result is misery? So about 10 or 12 years ago, I sort of realized, inspired, this is a good name drop, inspired by a conversation I had with the Dalai Lama, thank you, to commit myself to service. And my goal in life is, as I'm sure is the case for many people here, commitment to animal rights activism. That's it, more than anything else. And so again, what I was saying earlier is we use our production company, Little Walnut, we use our platforms, Alessio, Bobby, everybody here does everything they can with whatever resources they have to again move the needle away from the current system. And so, yeah, 5 years ago, I was talking to some friends and I realized very few people knew the history of punk rock and animal rights activism. And so I was like, well, I'm not a real film director, but I have a camera and I have a Zoom recorder, so I guess now I'm a film director. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this project was the most DIY project. We made most of it at Moby's house. We taught ourselves how to do stop motion animation for it, but it remained an activist film through and through because we brought on Alessio to edit, and Alessio is an incredible animal activist who's dedicated so much of his life and his time to animal activism. So we were so excited to have him on board to edit this film. I mean, I couldn't think of a more perfect editor for the film. And then having Bobby as this incredible resource. Bobby is at every single pig vigil, cow vigil, saving chickens weekly, and we got to use so many of his amazing photos and videos that he's, out there at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning every week to get. So it was an amazing process to not only get to do it ourselves, but to work with a team of such dedicated activists. It's been really cool.
And just one sort of codicil to that is the DIY approach. One, it's really fun. Like the fact that we learned how to do stop motion the day that we decided to have stop motion animation. Like we were like, we want stop motion. Let's download the software. And you'll see the stop motion movie is so professional. Because we learned how to do it the day that we did it. But the other reason for keeping everything in-house was to keep the costs as low as possible. I mean, the total budget for the movie is less than $100,000, and that means we can give it away. So next Wednesday, the movie's given away for free. You or anyone you know, do whatever you want with it. I'm not supposed to say that, right, Lindsay? But
You're not allowed to say that. Don't do anything you want, just watch it.
But it's available. My only request/demand regarding the movie is that no one ever pay to see it. Like, it'll be free wherever free things can live. You can stream it, you can download it. It's no longer ours. Once it goes on the public platforms, it's no longer ours. Like, we've had interest from streaming services, and I love a good streaming service. Who doesn't? Great to turn off your brain and sit back and play with your phone while the TV is on. But why create a barrier to to a product of activism? And also just personally, like, I personally cannot in good conscience profit from activism. I guess I'm in a privileged position where I can make that choice, but that's why we just wanted to make it quickly, inexpensively, and give it away for free so that no one anywhere can have a barrier to ever watching, these eloquent punk rockers talk about animal rights activism.
And can I just say, Moby is very good at cutting out teensy tiny pants out of cardboard. I've never seen anything like it. It's a skill I didn't see coming, but it's special. You'll see.
Bobby, how are you at cutting out? Bagel is trying to say something. No, she was trying to talk.
Yeah, I've never tried cutting out pants out of cardboard, but I was just thrilled when Moby asked if I could contribute, and I know anything Moby does, it's a very loud voice. He has a very big platform because he's been so active and been talking about animal rights. Like, the album Play had like animal rights in the pages. Like, it's some of the first animal rights literature I ever read was the inside of Play. So yeah, when he asked me, I was like, yeah, here's 6 years of footage. Take whatever you want, So yeah, it's just a privilege to be a part of it.
And also, Alessio edited the movie, and I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, Biggs, hi baby, hi. But the interviews, one of the things that impressed me so much about all the people who are interviewed is how eloquent they are. So Alessio took hundreds of hours of footage and found the best parts of it. And what amazes me is English isn't your first language, is it?
No, it's not.
So how did you do that? Like, you found the best smart bagel.
Yeah, it was a challenge to go through hundreds of hours of interviews and find the best sound bites, the best story, find a story. But it was also very interesting for me because I didn't know about punk rock very much. I wasn't into punk rock. So learning that the intersectionality of punk rock with the vegan movement was very interesting, and to see that difference, the contrast between the music. It sounds angry, sounds like so violent, but if you actually stop and listen to the lyrics, they're actually about compassion, about kindness. And so I really liked the approach to basically break down the wall that we have about being a man, being tough, have to be a bully, instead of like this people that you see in the movie. You know, they're like compassionate. You know, like they sing the songs and you know they do what they do, but at the end of the day, they were most of them were straight edge as well, right? And they were vegetarian, vegan, and so I think it's a great thing to put out there for people to see and to learn about. So,
I mean, that is one of what I've been doing a ton of interviews, and almost every journalist I talk to comes back and says, wow, I always thought punk rock was nihilism. You know, I always thought punk rock was meatheads just beating the shit out of each other. And I realized, oh, because that's what it became. Like, if you look at Woodstock 99, like, yeah, that was terrible. I was there. It was awful. You know, it was frat boys beating the shit out of each other while ostensible punk rock bands played. But the roots of punk rock are questioning. You know, the roots of punk rock is this integrity and this rational criteria for assessing the world. And Alessio, to your point, this is one thing that I've just been so baffled by lately, is the idea in our culture that meat eating is masculine.
right,
I'm really trying to make sense of this. Like, how is it masculine to like sit and eat a defenseless vegan animal that was killed by some poor underpaid worker somewhere? Like a chicken and a cow, they can't defend themselves, and like somehow it's macho to eat the flesh of vegan animals who were brutally murdered by underpaid workers. But then again, I guess masculinity in the United States involves a lot of sitting and a lot of crippling obesity. So it's just chalk that up as one of the many things that's completely wrong with our culture. Sorry, okay, I won't get on my soapbox too much. I mean, I've got the movie as my soapbox, so I don't need to sit here and get on my soapbox like Grandpa Simpson complaining about everything.
Yeah.
Well, so as I mentioned, I went vegan 35 years ago, and I had grown up, like I assume everybody here, everyone apart from Joaquin Phoenix and Keegan, I grew up loving animals, but loving Burger King. You know, we had so many rescue animals in my house, and I loved them unconditionally, but I also loved pepperoni pizza. And when I was 19, I had that moment where I was like, oh, this is inconsistent. Like, if you love children, you don't want to kill them and slice them up and put them on a pizza, to state the obvious. And I just realized it was so inconsistent to love animals, but also be very actively involved in their suffering and death. So I went vegetarian when I was 19, then vegan in 1987. And then as time passed, and forgive me if I'm really stating the obvious, but I don't know, there's something comforting in stating the obvious. But so I went vegan for that desire to no longer cause suffering for animals, but then time passed and I realized, oh, animal agriculture is also the reason why we're cutting down the rainforests. It's 40% of California's water use goes to animal agriculture, and animal ag contributes less than 0.5% of our state's GDP. So we don't have a water crisis, we have an animal ag crisis. Pandemics are all zoonotic in origin. Zoonotic means the etiology of a pandemic is animal agriculture. Antibiotic resistance, even the NIH will say clearly 90% of antibiotic resistance is a result of animal agriculture. On and on and on. So basically, I went vegan for the animals and then found out so many other things that just strengthened and reinforced my belief that using animals for food is the single cruelest, dumbest thing humans have ever done.
How did I go vegetarian? Well, I went vegan originally in 2005 because I was in college and I'd gotten drunk on beers at a party and I was feeling existential and I was on the internet and I discovered the videos that now, the kind that our friend Bobby is now, and Alessio too, are now putting out into the world. And I was living in Texas. It had never occurred to me to think about where it all comes from in an emotional way, and I did in that moment when I think I was 20 or 21. And I was so shocked, and it was in Texas, and when I told people I was vegan, they were like, do you do chicken? You want to eat some chicken? They called it vegan. Many of them still do. And so yeah, that kind of began it was the videos on the PETA website that opened up my mind to being a little bit more compassionate and changing my whole life because of it.
I originally went plant-based because I was 300 pounds and type 2 diabetic and high cholesterol and hypertension and all that. And then about 6 months after that, I went to the first LA Animal Safe Pig Vigil. And I remember standing in front of the truck with 200 6-month-old pigs and having the realization that I'm only gonna be here I get one chance to be here on this planet as the individual that I am now. I don't know what happens after we die. Maybe we come back, but I know I won't be back as this person. So I have one chance to create as much kindness and compassion and meaning in my life as I can before my one chance is over. And when I watched that truck pull into the slaughterhouse, I realized that was their one chance. And after that, my entire life became about vigils and animal rights and veganism, and stopped really caring about the health part. I mean, it's great that I can help people find their health and happiness and connection to the world again, but for me, it's all about animals.
Same. I watched a documentary called Unity from Sean Monson, and it was the first 5 minutes of the documentary that just destroyed me. Like it's a cow going through towards death, and it's unedited. It's just 5 minutes of seeing the cow go towards death, and it started a journey. It started like something inside of me, and I decided that I didn't want to be part of it anymore. I didn't want to contribute to that anymore. And so I also realized how powerful documentaries can be. And that's why I decided to dedicate my life, my work towards making documentaries and creating content that can help people, inspire people just the way I was inspired.
At some point, I assume we want to watch the movie, huh? Well, we're currently we're trying to make a documentary about the Animal Save movement.
With Bobby.
With Bobby, and hopefully Alessio. The problem, and I don't know if this is interesting or relevant, but it's this huge issue, is there's so many documentary filmmakers who are giving up years of their lives to make phenomenal documentaries. The streaming services don't want any of them. Like Alessio, you referenced that sort of like the golden era of documentaries when Netflix had What the Hells and Forks Over Knives. Those days are gone. Like the streaming services are so conservative now. Some friends of ours, made a movie that was produced by Billie Eilish, and they brought it to one of the big streaming services, and the big streaming service said, oh yeah, we like this, but you have to remove all the stuff about fast food. And they're like, but that's half the movie. Like, we're talking about how fast food is killing people. And they're like, sorry, we can't, those are advertisers. So there's this big question for content creators, especially in the world of unscripted documentary, is where will it live? You know, and we on a daily basis, we talk to filmmakers who make these amazing movies. Like, we've helped produce some phenomenal movies like Meet the Future and Slay, and they don't find a home. And so I'm just saying this to anyone out there, if you're making a documentary, do your best to not think of making it for a streaming service, because they don't want it. I have yet to hear, in the last 3 years, I don't know of the last one was Game Changers, but basically the streaming services don't want it unless it's about Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, or something, like they want documentaries about murders that happened recently, but they don't want anything that might challenge the advertisers. So just something to keep in mind if you're working on something. Sorry for rambling on about this, but we hear this constantly. People are like, oh yeah, we're finishing up and then we're gonna bring it to Netflix. I was like, they don't want it. When was the last time you saw a challenging, I'm not criticizing Netflix, they have a business model, it just no longer involves movies that might offend part of their viewership. So we're trying to figure out how to make content that either works within the streaming service system or can bypass it completely. That's why we're giving this movie away. Like Unchained TV, for example. Very quickly, before we show the movie, any burning desires, any questions? Burning desires, AA talk, sorry. I'm an old guy, I turn everything into a 12-step meeting. Oh, so Jane Velez Mitchell is asking if she can stream the movie on Unchained TV. Of course, for free. Anybody can. If you want the movie, it's yours. Do with it as you please. Like, sure, by all means. And sorry, Lindsay, am I going to get in trouble for saying that?
You might get in trouble.
Okay.
Assuming we would love to if we can. We can. I'm
yeah,
sure.
Of course you can. Yeah. Oh. Well, the wonderful thing, what's the call to action for veganism? The call to action is anything you can think of. It's posting on social media. It's no longer buying things that cause animal suffering or contribute to animal suffering. It's letting politicians know that this is an important issue. I mean, it's driving me crazy. Article after article about the Western United States in this chronic drought. And they're like, how are we ever gonna fix this? I was like, stop using water for animal agriculture. So simple. And they'll never address it. Or how are they gonna address antibiotic resistance? Stop subsidizing animal agriculture. So and go to vigils. Write to corporations, but basically, the easiest way to be an activist is every time we spend money, our money should be spent in accordance with our values. And beyond that, like Cory Booker is a vegan activist. He ran for Senate and he won. Adam Schiff is a vegan. He's in the House of Representatives. He's probably good. Maybe Katie Porter, she's awesome too, but she's not vegan. So sorry to be all vaguely specific, specifically vague, but we can do everything. I run for governor and do a better job than Gavin Newsom.
But also, in this day and age, we all have a platform, we all have social media. You can make a delicious vegan dish and post about it. You can go to a vigil and post about it. There's lots of ways to show up and just let the world know that you are showing up and what you care about.
And just before we show the movie, I just want to say thank you, Alessio, thank you, Bobby, thank you, Lindsay, thank you, Bagel, who is the star of the movie. Thank you for hosting this in this beautiful theater. And to the activists in the audience, thank you. Like, this last week was the last week of vigils at Farmer John and Vern, and I'm just so impressed with the activists who, to your point, do everything. You know, and it's really amazing. Like the group of committed activists around, you know, ending animal agriculture. It's so inspiring. So honestly, thank you all very much.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you guys for coming tonight, and the audience, of course. And you released the film January 20th. See, there it is, 3 times. The theater, January 20th, my birthday. We released the film at Slam Dance.
And available for free everywhere starting this coming Wednesday.